When I saw the message from Julia, "Working late, don't wait up," I was already sitting at our kitchen table, staring at the copy of our prenup with paragraph 4 highlighted in bright yellow. My laptop screen glowed beside it, paused on a frame from the security camera footage. Timestamped, zoomed in, undeniable. There she was, stepping out of the passenger side of a dark sedan, one heel hitting the curb, the other still in the car as she adjusted her skirt. Her boss, Alan Crowley, regional director, mid-40s, married with 2 kids, walked around the front of the car, looked up and down the street, and leaned in close. Then it happened. Quick, deliberate. She kissed him. Not some cheek peck you'd pass off as European politeness. This was real. Familiar. Short enough to deny but long enough to say too much. Then she pulled back, fixed her blouse, ran a hand through her hair, and turned toward our front door. No guilt. No hesitation. Just normal. A minute and 22 seconds later, my phone buzzed on the table. Working late. Don't wait up, briefcase cloud with rain. She even added emojis, the briefcase and the rain cloud, like she was trying to sell the alibi with flair. That was her style. Always a little too polished. Always good at packaging the story so it felt just far enough from suspicion. But this wasn't the kind of message you send after kissing your boss outside your home. It was the kind you send to look innocent, to make sure the person on the receiving end doesn't start looking. Too late for that. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the wall clock. The storm outside had slowed to a drizzle, but my thoughts didn't. I stared at the screen, at the frozen image of her stepping away from the car, like I could force some part of her to admit what I already knew. That camera wasn't even meant for this. A year ago, a string of break-ins had swept through the neighborhood. Garage doors busted in, car windows shattered, packages stolen. Julia was nervous. She didn't like the idea of someone casing our house. I remember her urging me to get cameras installed. Just in case, Sam. It's peace of mind. So I did. Front porch, driveway, back alley, even one tucked discreetly into the old lamp post by the curb, where the city's been too lazy to replace the bulb. That one, ironically, had the best angle. Caught everything. Now it was me who needed peace of mind. I should have confronted her the moment I saw it. Should have called her out before she even walked through the door. But I didn't. I wanted to see how she'd play it, how much she thought she could still control. When she finally came home, around 10:45 p.m. by the microwave clock, she walked in like nothing was wrong. Purse slung over her shoulder, hair still damp from the rain, blazer buttoned like she'd just walked out of a boardroom. She stopped when she saw me at the table. "Oh," she said, tone light but a little too fast. "You're still up." She wasn't expecting that. I looked at her but didn't say a word. She set her purse down carefully on the entry table, took off her heels, one at a time like always, and started talking before I even had the chance to. "Work was brutal," she said, slipping into the kitchen and opening the fridge. "I swear. The storm made everything worse. Half the team bailed early, so I had to cover for 2 projects. Alan was nice enough to give me a ride home. I told him he didn't have to, but he insisted." She said it while grabbing a bottle of water. No eye contact, just narration. I watched her twist the cap, take a sip. Then she leaned against the counter, finally meeting my eyes. "You okay?" she asked. "You look tense." That was the moment. Not when I saw the kiss. Not when I read the message. But right then, when she asked me if I was okay, as if I was the one with something to hide. That's when I realized she wasn't just lying. She was trying to flip it before I even got a chance to speak. I said nothing, just held her gaze. "You're giving me that look?" she said, letting out a forced laugh. "What? You think something happened? Sam, come on." Still, I didn't speak. I just tilted my head slightly, studying her. The way her fingers fidgeted with the cap, the way her left foot tapped lightly against the tile floor, barely audible but rhythmic. Nervous energy. Then she went on the offensive. "I know how those cameras are," she said. "Sometimes the angles make things look off. You probably saw me getting out of Alan's car and thought something weird was happening. But seriously, he just gave me a ride. That's it. There it was. Damage control. I didn't even have to ask a question. She'd already built the defense. No one else was around, and with the storm it just made sense. She continued. Do you really think I'd do something shady right in front of our house? In full view of a camera? That's ridiculous, Sam. Her tone tried to stay firm, but there was a quiver underneath. Not a breakdown, not yet, but the fear was there. Fear that I'd seen something, that I knew. She stepped forward, placing the water bottle on the table between us. I get it, she said. You're tired. You probably had a long day, and now your mind's spinning. But seriously, don't let it. There's nothing to worry about. I still hadn't spoken. Finally, she sighed and ran both hands through her hair. Sam, come on. Say something. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I stood up. She flinched slightly, maybe from surprise, maybe from guilt. I walked past her slowly, heading toward the hallway. But just before I reached the corner, I stopped and said quietly, almost too quiet to hear, You didn't even ask what I saw. She froze. I didn't look back, just kept walking. It's strange how, once you spot the first crack, the whole wall starts to crumble. That night after Julia went to bed, or at least pretended to, I sat in the dark and started replaying the past few months in my head. Not the big events, not the birthdays or vacations, the small things, the things I'd ignored. It started with a shade of lipstick. I remember the morning she wore it. This deep, reddish color she'd never used before. Julia was always more of a muted tones kind of woman. Earthy, professional. But that day, she stepped out of the bathroom with it on. And I said, That's new. She barely acknowledged it. Just said something about trying something bolder for work. I didn't think much of it. People change styles. Then came the blouse. The one with the pearl buttons and tags still on it. When I checked the receipt, not because I was suspicious then, just curious, I saw it had been paid for with our joint card. $228. She told me it was on sale. Funny how lies sound smaller when they're wrapped in on sale. There were other moments too, all these disconnected pieces that didn't mean much on their own but now, in retrospect, formed a kind of breadcrumb trail straight to the truth. Like the way she smiled at her phone. That's what really stuck in my head. She'd get a message while we were watching TV. Something dumb like a baking show or one of those true crime but make it quirky docuseries she loved. Her phone would buzz. She'd glance at it. And then this soft little smile would creep onto her face. It wasn't the "ha, that's funny" smile. It was gentler, private. She'd tilt the screen away when I looked over. Always casual. Always smooth. Work stuff, she'd say. Boring. You don't want to see. Back then, I didn't want to see. That's the honest truth. When you trust someone, you learn to turn off the parts of your brain that whisper doubts. You learn to give space. That's what love is supposed to be, right? Not surveillance. Not suspicion. Just faith. But now I was watching my memory like it was evidence in a courtroom. She started working late more often too. It wasn't dramatic. Just enough to raise a flag I kept folding back down. Meeting ran long. Alan needed help with reports. There's a launch coming up. Always something. And when she came home from those late nights, she didn't come in looking exhausted. She looked finished. Like a polished version of herself had just been out living another life and now, here she was, slipping back into this one like an old pair of shoes. Her affection changed too. I'd reach for her hand on the couch, and she'd squeeze mine back, but with less warmth. Kisses were routine. Eye contact drifted. And when we had dinner, she'd ask me about my day, nod while I spoke, and then turn quiet. Disconnected. And I know what you're thinking. Marriages go through phases. People drift. But I had always believed Julia and I were the exception. We had built ourselves on communication. On logic. She was the one who told me that love without structure falls apart. That's why we had the prenup. That document was her idea. Back when we were engaged, she said something like, It's not about planning for divorce, Sam. It's about protecting what we each build, in case life throws curveballs. I remember nodding even though I didn't fully agree. I'd always believed if you were planning for the end, you were already halfway there. But Julia was persuasive and reasonable, and she never made me feel like she was doubting me. She made it seem smart, grown up. You never know how people change when things go bad, she said. I just want to make sure we're both covered. She was calm about it, clear-eyed, and that should have been my first clue. Because now that clause, paragraph 4, the one about infidelity and immediate asset division, was lit up in yellow on my kitchen table. She'd written it in herself. Her legal team had signed off on it. She had insisted on it. At the time, I joked, "This sounds like you're expecting one of us to cheat." She laughed. "It's just a safeguard. I trust you." Now I wasn't so sure if she ever had. Maybe she didn't plan it this way. Maybe she didn't think it through. But that's what made it worse. Because Julia wasn't careless. Julia was calculated. She prepared for everything: meetings, travel, taxes. Everything in her world had a backup plan. So how could she not realize the cameras were still running? Or that the prenup she was so proud of might become the exact blade I used to cut this whole thing loose? That's the part one couldn't wrap my head around. Unless some part of her wanted to get caught. That night, after the confrontation that wasn't really a confrontation, I sat in the living room with the lights off. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to be in the same bed as her. And I didn't want to cry, though I could feel it pulling at the back of my throat like a tide. So I just sat. I kept thinking about her friends. How they'd changed lately too. Melissa used to text me funny reels. Rebecca used to chat with me during double dates. Lately, silence. Quick waves. Cold shoulders. Like they'd been told something or seen something and didn't want to get involved. And Julia never mentioned them anymore either. Not in passing. Not at all. All these pieces were floating in my head, and they finally started clicking together. I remembered seeing her close her laptop quickly one evening when I walked into the room. She claimed she was booking us tickets to see her family upstate. But she didn't bring it up again. No tickets ever showed up in our email. When I asked about it weeks later, she said she'd changed her mind. Too expensive, she claimed. They understand. I bought that. I bought all of it. And now I felt like the dumbest man alive. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was something worse, aware. That stage where you realize you've been played, but the betrayal is still fresh enough that you're not sure how deep it goes. Like walking across a frozen lake and hearing the first crack under your feet. I went back to the camera feed. Not just that night. I pulled up the archived footage I hadn't touched in months. There were so many clips. Some empty, some routine. But I was looking now, really looking. Her boss's car had shown up more than once. Same time of night. Same subtle rituals. She'd step out, smooth her skirt, check her phone. He'd lean in, say something that made her laugh. And she'd walk toward our door like she was stepping onto a movie set. Every detail just right. And me? I was usually inside, or out late, or trusting her. That's when the weight of it all finally settled in my chest. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd made me complicit in my own blindness. And that was a kind of betrayal I didn't know how to forgive. By the time the sun came up the next morning, I hadn't slept. I didn't even try. I just sat there, motionless, cycling through weeks of camera footage like I was watching someone else's life unfold. Someone naive, someone trusting, someone stupid. There's this moment, if you've ever caught someone lying to you, you'll know what I mean, where the pain stops stinging and something colder settles in. You stop asking why and you start asking how long. You stop looking for apologies and start looking for evidence. Not to win, not to fight, just to understand what the hell happened to the life you thought you had. For me, that moment came at 4:23 a.m. I was scrubbing through footage from last Thursday. A black sedan pulled up 2 blocks down from our driveway, just outside the camera's normal range. But the lamp post across the street had a line of sight that clipped the edge of that intersection, and if you knew what to look for, and I did now, you could make out 2 people in the car. First, nothing. Just idling. Then the passenger door opened, and Julia stepped out, barefoot. That's what hit me first. She pulled a pair of heels from her bag, set them down gently on the pavement, and slid them on before closing the door. She smoothed her skirt, adjusted her hair in the side mirror, then waited. 10 seconds later, the driver's side opened. Alan got out. No rush, no nerves. He walked around and didn't even glance toward the house. His entire focus was on her. They said something to each other, and she laughed. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard from her in weeks. And then he leaned in. He kissed her. Longer this time, and she didn't pull away. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty. They had done this before. Afterwards, she stepped back, touched her lips, smiled. Then she looked both ways. Left, right, like a teenager sneaking back into their parents' house after curfew. She didn't look up. Didn't see the lens in the streetlight above her, embedded in the old metal casing like it belonged there. The city never fixed that lamp. I did. And I guess in a way I fixed myself that night, too. Exactly 3 minutes after entering the house, she sent the message. Working late. Don't wait up. A lie delivered like a routine. I didn't feel rage. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything or cry. I just closed the laptop slowly and stared at the wall. I don't know how long I sat there. Eventually, I opened a folder on my desktop labeled Home Security Archive. I created a new subfolder and named it simply Trigger. Inside, I dropped the footage. The original video, the timestamps, the still frames. Then I wrote a single-line message and attached the file. Subject: for review. Message: per the terms outlined in paragraph 4, please see attached. Then I sent it to my attorney. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It was like I'd stepped out of my own body and become someone else entirely. Someone deliberate, cold, precise. That man had a job to do now. When I finally stood, the light coming through the window was pale and indifferent. Julia was still upstairs, probably asleep. Maybe dreaming. Maybe thinking she got away with it. Maybe believing I'd bought her story from the night before. I didn't care what she thought. The next few hours moved in slow motion. I shaved, showered, got dressed, ate breakfast, all while watching the clock. I had a meeting with my lawyer at noon. We'd already spoken once before, months ago, about the prenup, not because I was worried, but because Julia had insisted on having everything crystal clear. She wanted to protect both of us, she said. Now that clause, the one she authored, was going to be the foundation of her undoing. At exactly 11:58, I walked into my attorney's office. His name was Greg Dandridge. Older guy, ex-military type. No fluff, no small talk. That's why I hired him. You ready for this? He asked. I nodded. He opened a manila folder, thumbed through some pages, then looked up. We're starting with the HR angle. Quiet. No accusations yet. We send them a formal letter requesting clarification on their policy regarding interoffice relationships involving supervisors. That opens the door. And the footage? I asked. Already cataloged and referenced. We won't send it unless they push back. But once they start reviewing their own logs, they'll connect the dots. You know how companies operate, risk management over loyalty. I nodded again. And the prenup? Greg actually smiled. Just a little. She signed her own trap, he said. Clause 4 is airtight. There's no ambiguity. Infidelity voids her access to shared property, support, and equity. You don't even need to prove consummation, just intent, contact, and deceit. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. You're sure? Greg folded his hands. Sam, she wrote it. You just signed. That afternoon, the letter went out. Not to Julia. To her employer. It was crafted carefully, no accusations, no moral high ground. Just a request for clarification regarding professional conduct. Alan Crowley's name was mentioned only once. The HR department at their firm was legally obligated to follow protocol. That meant one thing, an internal ethics investigation. Julia didn't know any of this yet, but she would. By the time I got home, she was in the kitchen, wearing yoga pants and a hoodie, sipping tea like we hadn't gone to bed in a fog of unspoken tension. She smiled faintly when I walked in, like it was just another day. You okay? She asked. You seemed quiet last night. I nodded. Didn't sleep well, I replied. Headache. She made that sympathetic face. The one she used when she wanted to seem nurturing. "I'll make that turmeric ginger thing you like tonight," she said. "It's supposed to help." I looked at her for a moment and wondered how many times she'd come home from him, walked into this kitchen, and pretended to care about me. How many times she'd told herself she still loved me. Because love, for people like Julia, was more about comfort than truth. I wanted to ask her. I wanted to say, when did I stop being enough? But instead I said, sure, thanks. Then I went upstairs. And I waited. By the next morning, everything had been set in motion. I woke up early, showered, shaved, and got dressed like it was any other Tuesday. But in reality, I was a man walking into the final stages of a plan I didn't even know I'd been building for months. At 8:17 a.m., my attorney's assistant sent confirmation. The HR department had received our inquiry and had officially escalated it. Not just to internal review, but legal. That meant someone, probably someone high up, had seen the footage. At 8:42, I froze the joint accounts. That move was 100% legal, thanks to paragraph 4 of the prenup, which stated that in the event of confirmed infidelity, any jointly held marital assets shall be reverted to sole control by the non-breaching party, pending review. Julia had insisted on that clause when we signed the document. Her exact words were, "Just to keep things clean if something ever goes wrong." Well, things had gone wrong. My bank app made it easy. One click to suspend transfers. Another to restrict usage to verified cardholder only me. The balance still showed the full amount, but her access was gone. I closed the app and sat at the table, sipping coffee like I hadn't just detonated the foundation of our marriage from my phone. At 9:10, I got the first ping from the card alerts I'd set up years ago, mostly to track spending. The boutique on 3rd Street, one of Julia's favorites, declined a $316 purchase. Likely a handbag or perfume. Something frivolous. Something she didn't need, but always found a way to justify. At 9:11, another alert. Gas station. Declined. At 9:15, she called me. I stared at the screen as it buzzed on the table. Her name. Her picture. One of our vacation photos from Maine, where she's laughing in the sun. Not a care in the world. I let it ring. No voicemail. 2 minutes later, she texted, "Julia. Hey, something's up with the account. Did you change something?" Then, "Julia. My card just got declined. Twice." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded her text to Greg, my attorney. He replied within the hour. "Greg. Going forward, please direct all communications through counsel. Simple. Clinical." The wall was up now. At 11:07, I heard her car pull into the driveway. I didn't expect her home so soon, but clearly, she wasn't about to let this slide without demanding answers. I stood in the hallway, out of view, as she stormed through the door. "Sam?" she called out. "What's going on?" I stepped into the entryway, calm. Hands in pockets. Neutral expression. "I need to know what's happening," she said. "My card didn't work, and the bank app says the accounts are frozen. Is this a glitch or something?" "It's not a glitch," I said. My voice was steady. "All financial decisions are going through legal from now on." Her eyebrows knit together. "Legal? What are you talking about?" "I'm saying," I said slowly, "that until this is resolved, everything is on hold." She blinked. "Resolved? Sam, what's happening? What did you do?" I tilted my head slightly. "What did you do?" She went quiet. "I have nothing to hide," she said eventually, folding her arms like it gave her some kind of moral leverage. "If this is about Alan driving me home, I already explained that. I'm not discussing this with you directly anymore," I said. "All communication will be through our attorneys." Her mouth opened and closed, like she wanted to yell but couldn't find the words. "You're being ridiculous," she snapped. "You're freezing our accounts? You're seriously going to lawyers over a misunderstanding?" I didn't say anything. "You think I cheated on you?" she demanded. Again, I said nothing. "Say it," she pushed, stepping closer. "Just say it, Sam. You think I'm sleeping with my boss?" Silence. She scoffed, laughed even, like she was trying to regain control. You know what? If you're gonna act like this, maybe I should get a lawyer. Because this is insane. You should, I said. That stopped her. Just for a second. A beat of genuine panic crossed her face. She spun around and stormed toward the kitchen. This is some kind of overreaction, she muttered. We're adults. You don't blow up a marriage over a ride home. I followed slowly. She was pacing now, flustered. Not used to being ignored. Not used to losing footing in a conversation. I don't know what game you're playing, she said. But if you're trying to scare me, it's not working. I'm not playing, I replied. She stopped and faced me. You're freezing accounts, getting lawyers involved, and refusing to talk to me. That is playing. I crossed my arms. You ever read paragraph 4 of the prenup lately? Her eyes narrowed. What? Paragraph 4, I repeated. The one about infidelity. The clause you insisted on when we got married. I remember it, she said quickly. But nothing in that clause justifies this. There's no proof of anything. You're acting like some paranoid. Don't, I said. Don't finish that sentence. She flinched again. A small crack in the facade. I'm giving you space to consult with your attorney, I said. Anything else you'll have to take up through them. Her face flushed. Anger, confusion, maybe even fear. Sam, please, she said, lowering her voice. Can we just talk? Like people? No. Her lips parted in disbelief. Not anymore, I said. We don't talk. We document. That night, she stayed in the guest room. I heard her crying around midnight. The kind of cry where someone's trying to muffle it but failing. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered the footage. The car. The kiss. The smile. And suddenly, I was more at peace than I had been in months. By the next morning, the fallout had already begun. Her company placed both Julia and Alan on immediate leave, pending investigation. Greg had timed the legal filing perfectly. Corporate couldn't risk exposure. Even rumors of an affair involving a director could send things spiraling. I found out from a friend of mine who worked in compliance at the firm. It's bad, he told me. HR scrambling. Legal's livid. Apparently, someone forwarded them security footage? Anonymous email? I didn't respond, just nodded. That evening, Julia came home late. Her makeup was smudged, like she'd been wiping at her eyes all day. They suspended me, she said softly, standing in the doorway like a ghost. I said nothing. She waited, hoping maybe that I'd comfort her, that I'd soften. I didn't. After a minute of silence, she whispered, I don't know what to do. Start with your lawyer, I said. Then I turned and walked out of the room. It's hard to explain what silence actually sounds like. Real silence. Not the peaceful kind you get on a Sunday morning, but the kind that rings in your ears and lets you know something's been broken. That's the silence Julia walked into. It began the day after she was placed on leave. She came home early again, wearing sweatpants and an old hoodie, her office bag limp at her side like it had no more purpose. Her eyes were sunken, and her voice was thin when she spoke. They're doing an internal ethics review, she said, more to herself than to me. Alan and I are both suspended. It's temporary. They said it's procedural. I just nodded. She hovered in the doorway for a moment, like she wanted to sit, to explain something, anything. But when I didn't offer her a chair or sympathy, she walked upstairs in silence. And then it started. The slow but methodical collapse of her world. It wasn't loud. It didn't come with sirens or shouting. It came through notifications, missed calls, and the gradual realization that the version of herself she'd worked so hard to build was slipping through her fingers, and she couldn't stop it. The first thing she noticed was the group chat. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the living room reading. She walked in, phone in hand, blinking rapidly like someone trying to wake from a bad dream. They left the group, she said. I looked up. Melissa, Claire, even Becca. Her voice trembled. They all left the group chat. No message. Nothing. Just gone. I didn't say a word. She stood there, searching my face for a reaction. Do you think they know? I raised an eyebrow. What exactly would they know? She didn't answer. The next day, her Instagram took the hit. She'd always been low-key about social media, just enough to stay relevant, never enough to overshare. But her stories usually got dozens of reactions. Little heart emojis, laughs, quick comments. Her photos? Always a few hundred likes, minimum. That Sunday, she posted a photo of her matcha latte and a caption that said, "Trying to focus on gratitude." 0 comments. 37 likes. I don't think she meant for me to see it, but I did. I watched her scroll through her own post like she couldn't believe the numbers. She refreshed it twice. 3 times. Nothing changed. By Monday, even her sister had gone quiet. "Lily hasn't texted me back," she said over dinner. Not that we were eating together. I was at the table. She was standing by the counter, pretending to pick at leftovers. "It's been 2 days," she went on. "She always texts back. Always." I just looked at her. "I didn't tell her anything," she added. "I don't know how she'd even." She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes darting to me. "What did you do?" The question wasn't casual. It was sharp, afraid. "Me?" I asked, tone flat. "I haven't spoken to anyone. But someone sent the video," she said. "Right? That's how this all started. You leaked it." "Did I?" Her lips tightened. "You know what you're doing." I leaned back in my chair. "Yes." She stared at me, like she was trying to decide whether to cry or scream. But all she did was turn and walk out of the room, barefoot, her steps somehow both heavy and unsure. Her job wasn't just a job. It was her identity, her armor, her currency in every room she walked into. Julia had always been respected, polished, competent, quick with solutions. People listened when she spoke. Clients trusted her. HR even used her as an example of professional standards in onboarding videos. But now she was a liability, a pending file. That Wednesday, she received a certified letter from the company. She opened it in the foyer, and I watched her hands tremble as she read it. "Effective immediately," she whispered. I already knew what it said. Greg had gotten the heads up from someone inside legal. The investigation found sufficient cause to terminate her based on conduct unbecoming of her role, inappropriate workplace relations, and violation of internal ethics. Alan was fired too. Apparently, his wife had received a copy of the footage anonymously. She'd filed for divorce within 48 hours. Their kids, ages 6 and 9, were with her. Julia dropped the letter on the floor like it burned. "They didn't even let me speak," she said, voice cracking. "Didn't ask for my side. Just done. I didn't move. Do you understand what you've done?" she hissed. "You've ruined me." I stood up, calm. "No, Julia," I said. "You ruined yourself. I just kept the receipts." By Friday, she'd stopped pretending things would go back to normal. She moved like a ghost around the house. Quiet, slow, half-present. I'd find her staring at the TV without turning it on, or sitting in the laundry room with her knees tucked up to her chest like a kid in timeout. She tried to log into her company email. Access denied. She tried reaching out to contacts in her industry. None responded. One night, I overheard her on the phone with someone. Maybe an old friend, maybe a recruiter, pleading. "I made a mistake, okay? One mistake. I don't deserve to be blacklisted." A pause. "No, I didn't lie to you. I just didn't tell you everything." Another pause. "Please, can't we just meet for coffee?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. They'd hung up. Her desperation bled into everything. She tried talking to me again. Not angrily this time, but from a place of sadness, fear, regret. One night, she sat down at the kitchen table across from me. Hair pulled back. No makeup, just a hoodie and glassy eyes. "I lost everything," she said. I said nothing. "I know I don't deserve your sympathy," she added, "but I don't even know who I am anymore." Still, I didn't speak. She laughed bitterly. You're not even angry, are you? That's what makes this worse. You're just done. I nodded once. Do you hate me? She asked. I finally looked up. No. She blinked, surprised. I don't hate you, I said. I just don't trust you. And that's enough. The next morning, she left the house without saying anything. No note, no explanation, just her purse and her keys. When she came back, her eyes were red. I didn't ask. Later that night, she knocked on the door to the guest room, her room now. I didn't answer. She knocked again, softer. I talked to a lawyer, she said through the door. He thinks we can negotiate, that maybe there's room for interpretation. Silence. But I don't want to fight you, Sam. I want to fix this. Still silence. I love you, she added, voice barely audible. I let the words hang there, weightless and unwanted. Then I turned out the light. At the hearing, Julia showed up composed, with a fresh attorney and hopeful eyes. She thought there'd be room to negotiate, room to plead. But once paragraph 4 of the prenup was read aloud, her clause, the room shifted. Her lawyer tried spinning it, claiming ambiguity, emotional duress, even misinterpretation. But Greg calmly reminded everyone. The clause was her idea, her language, her signature. She didn't lose the house or the money or the investments because I was vindictive. She lost them because she bet against her own rules and lost. I left quietly, without a speech, while Julia was away on a self-care weekend. The house was already listed. Per the prenup, all shared property reverted to the non-breaching spouse. I took what was mine. No drama, no spite. When she returned, the for sale sign hit her harder than anything I'd said. She called, begged, even cried into voicemails. But everything went to the archive. I wasn't the man who forgave anymore. I was the one who documented and walked away,